Captain Threx stared at the tactical display, his four eyes blinking in rapid succession. The crimson dots representing enemy vessels had multiplied like parasites across the holographic star map. His mandibles clicked nervously as he processed the overwhelming odds. "Sir, we're outnumbered 12-1, reported Lieutenant Voss, her voice barely containing the panic that threatened to spill over. The bridge crew of the warship Eternal Valor fell silent, save for the ominous beeping of proximity alarms. "What's our status on evacuation pods?" Threx asked, though he already knew the answer would be disappointing. 47% operational. "The rest were damaged in the initial assault," Voss replied, her tentacles twitching with anxiety. That meant hundreds of civilians trapped aboard their ship, including families with younglings. Threx's mind raced through impossible calculations. Even if they could hold off the Scalith forces long enough to launch the remaining pods, most wouldn't make it to safety. A new voice cut through the tension like a blade through silk. "Captain, might I suggest we stop panicking and start fighting?" Every head on the bridge turned toward the human liaison officer, Commander Maya Torres. She stood with her arms crossed, looking remarkably calm for someone facing imminent death. Her brown hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and those strange, forward-facing predator eyes held an unsettling gleam. "Commander Torres," Threx began carefully, "while I appreciate your optimism, the mathematics are quite clear. We cannot win this engagement." Maya's lips curved into what humans called a smile, though Threx had learned that human facial expressions rarely meant what they appeared to mean. "Captain, with respect, you're thinking like prey. The Scalith expect us to run or surrender. They're not prepared for us to do something completely insane." "Such as?" Lieutenant Voss interjected, her voice rising an octave higher than usual. "Such as ramming their flagship with our ship while singing nursery songs," Maya replied without missing a beat. The bridge fell so quiet that Threx could hear his own circulatory system pumping. Several crew members exchanged glances that clearly questioned the human's sanity. "Commander Torres," Threx said slowly, "are you perhaps suffering from combat stress? Because that suggestion is..." "Brilliant," Maya finished. "Yeah, I thought so too." Before anyone could respond, the proximity alarms reached a crescendo. The enemy fleet had arrived. Through the main view screen, Threx watched as sleek, predatory vessels emerged from hyperspace. The Scalith ships resembled giant insects, all angles and sharp edges designed to intimidate. Their flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Bone Crusher, dominated the center of their formation. "Incoming transmission," announced Communications Officer Dex. The view screen filled with the grotesque visage of Admiral Krex, the Scalith commander. His insectoid features were twisted into what passed for a grin among his species. Multiple compound eyes glittered with malicious glee. "Surrender your vessel immediately," Krex's voice buzzed through the universal translator. "Your passengers will be processed efficiently. Resistance will only prolong their suffering." Threx opened his mouth to respond, but Maya stepped forward before he could speak. "Admiral Krex," she said pleasantly, as if greeting an old friend at a social gathering. "Lovely ship you have there, very stabby. I'm Commander Maya Torres, representing the Terran Alliance. I have a counter-proposal." Krex's compound eyes focused on her with predatory interest. "A human speaks? How amusing." "Very well, meat creature. What is this proposal?" "Single combat," Maya announced. "Your best warrior against mine. Winner takes all." The entire bridge erupted in shocked whispers. Threx felt his primary heart skip several beats. Even Krex seemed taken aback by the audacity of the suggestion. "You would stake the lives of thousands on individual combat?" Krex asked, his mandibles clicking with what might have been laughter. "Why not?" Maya shrugged. "Unless, of course, the mighty Scalith are afraid of one little human." That did it. Krex's eyes flared with rage, and his voice rose to a shriek. "Afraid? We fear nothing. especially not a soft-bodied weakling like you." "Excellent," Maya replied cheerfully. "My champion will meet yours in 30 minutes. Neutral ground between our fleets. Standard rules of engagement." "Agreed," Krek snarled. "My champion will tear your warrior limb from limb." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "Commander Torres," Threx said carefully, "might I ask who you have selected as our champion?" Maya turned to face him, and that unsettling smile grew wider. "Why, me, of course." The silence stretched for several heartbeats before Lieutenant Voss found her voice. "Commander, with all due respect, you're approximately half the size of an average Scarlith warrior. Their champion will likely be twice that size." "Size isn't everything," Maya replied, already heading for the door. "Besides, I have something they don't." "What's that?" Threx called after her. "A really good playlist." As Maya departed, Threx turned to his tactical officer. "Begin evacuation procedures for all non-essential personnel. If this goes badly—" "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Dex, "I'm detecting something unusual from the human quarters." "What kind of unusual?" "Audio transmissions. It appears Commander Torres is singing." Threx's mandibles clicked in confusion. Humans were truly the strangest species in the galaxy. Meanwhile, in her quarters, Maya was indeed singing. But she wasn't alone. Gathered around her were 3 small Zephyrian cubs, their mother having died in the initial attack. The younglings had been inconsolable, their mournful keening echoing through the corridors for hours. "Hush now, little ones," Maya said softly, her voice carrying a warmth that seemed to envelop the frightened cubs. "Let me tell you about the stars." She began to sing an old Earth lullaby, her voice clear and gentle. "Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky." The cubs gradually quieted, their large eyes fixed on Maya's face. Their translator units struggled with the concept of lullabies, but somehow the meaning transcended language barriers. "My mama said the stars were warriors," whispered the smallest cub, a female named Pip. "Your mama was very wise," Maya replied, stroking the cub's fur gently. "And do you know what the best warriors do?" "Fight bad things?" suggested the middle cub, whose name was Toke. "Sometimes," Maya nodded, "but the very best warriors protect the ones they love. They make sure the little ones feel safe, even when scary things are happening." The eldest cub, Ren, looked up at her with ancient eyes. "Are you going to fight the bad aliens?" Maya's expression grew serious for a moment. "I'm going to try to keep you safe. All of you." "Will you sing to us again when you come back?" Pip asked. "Of course," Maya promised. "I know lots of songs." A gentle chime from her communicator indicated it was time to go. Maya stood, but the cubs immediately pressed closer to her legs. "Don't go," Toke pleaded. Maya knelt down again, pulling all 3 cubs into a group hug. "Listen to me, brave little ones. Sometimes grown-ups have to do scary things to protect the people they care about. But I promise you this, no matter what happens, you are not alone. Captain Threx and his crew will take care of you. And I'll be thinking of you the whole time." "But what if the monster wins?" Ren asked, voicing the fear they all carried. Maya smiled, and for once it wasn't the unsettling predator grin that made other species nervous. This was something softer, warmer, utterly human. "Then you remember this song, and you remember that someone thought you were worth fighting for. You remember that your mama loved you enough to die protecting you. And you remember that even in the darkest times, there are still stars shining." She stood, straightened her uniform, and checked her sidearm. Time to go meet a creature that could probably tear her in half without breaking a sweat. The combat zone was a small asteroid between the 2 fleets. Artificial gravity generators had been deployed to create a fighting platform roughly the size of a football field. Maya stood at one end, stretching and running through her mental preparations. Her opponent emerged from the Scarlith transport like something from a nightmare. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, Champion Vex was a mountain of chitinous armor and razor-sharp claws. His 4 arms moved independently, each capable of crushing a human skull without effort. "This is your champion." Vex's voice was a rumbling growl that made the asteroid's surface vibrate. "I expected at least something challenging." "Sorry to disappoint," Maya replied, activating her personal music player. The opening notes of an old rock song began to pulse through her earpiece. "But you know what they say about expectations." "What do they say?" Vex asked, genuinely curious despite himself. Maya's predator smile returned in full force. "They're the mother of all disappointments." The battle began with Vex charging forward like a freight train. His 4 arms spread wide, claws extended, ready to end this farce quickly. Maya waited until the last possible second, then dropped into a slide that took her directly between Vex's legs. As she passed beneath him, she drew her combat knife and slashed at the joints where his chitin was weakest. Vex roared in surprise and pain, spinning around faster than something his size should have been able to move. One massive arm swept toward Maya's head. She ducked, rolled, and came up running. The music in her ears shifted to something with a heavier beat, and her movements seemed to flow with the rhythm. "Stand still and die with honor," Vex bellowed, lunging forward again. "Where's the fun in that?" Maya called back, vaulting over a low swipe from his secondary arms. For the next several minutes, the combat zone became a deadly dance. Vex possessed overwhelming strength and reach, but Maya had something far more valuable. She was completely, utterly unpredictable. She fought like no warrior Vex had ever encountered. Where other species relied on strength, speed, or natural weaponry, the human seemed to fight with pure, creative chaos. She used the environment, turning rocks into weapons and using Vex's own momentum against him. More importantly, she never stopped moving to the rhythm of whatever was playing in her earpiece. Her entire combat style seemed choreographed to music that only she could hear. "What manner of creature are you?" Vex gasped during a brief lull in the action. Green blood seeped from dozens of small wounds Maya had inflicted. "The kind that sings lullabies to orphaned cubs," Maya replied, breathing hard but still smiling. "The kind that thinks your empire's treatment of civilians is absolutely unacceptable. You fight for weaklings and younglings?" "I fight because someone has to," Maya said simply. "And right now that someone is me." Vex's compound eyes showed something that might have been confusion. In Scalith society, the strong dominated the weak. The concept of willingly risking one's life for others was alien to him. "You will die for these weaklings," he stated. "Maybe," Maya admitted, "but they'll know someone cared enough to try." The admission seemed to enrage Vex more than any insult could have. He launched himself forward in a final, desperate assault, all 4 arms striking simultaneously. Maya's response was to do something no sane warrior would attempt. Instead of retreating or blocking, she dove directly toward Vex, sliding under his guard and driving her knife up toward his primary heart. The blade found its mark just as Vex's claws raked across Maya's back. Both warriors collapsed to the asteroid's surface, breathing heavily. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Maya slowly pushed herself to her knees, wincing as the movement aggravated her wounds. Vex lay still, green blood pooling beneath him. His compound eyes had lost their luster. Maya struggled to her feet, swaying slightly. Around the combat zone, both fleets waited in stunned silence. She activated her communicator with shaking hands. "Captain Threx, this is Commander Torres. The champion is down. The Scalith fleet is negotiating terms of withdrawal." Indeed, Admiral Crex's voice was already crackling through the comm system, demanding to know how a primitive meat creature had defeated his finest warrior. Maya didn't hear the rest of the conversation. Her legs gave out, and she sank to the asteroid's surface, exhaustion overwhelming her. But even as darkness crept in around the edges of her vision, she could hear something beautiful. From the ship's internal communications system, broadcast so softly it was almost inaudible, came the sound of 3 small voices singing. "Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are." Maya smiled as consciousness faded. She had kept her promise after all. 3 days later, Maya woke up in the medical bay with the distinct feeling that a cargo hauler had used her spine as a landing strip. Every muscle in her body screamed protest as she tried to sit up. "Easy there, hero," came a familiar voice. Dr. Kess, the ship's chief medical officer, appeared beside her bed. His 6 tentacle arms moved with practiced efficiency as he checked her vital signs. "You've been unconscious for 72 hours. Your back looks like you wrestled with a fusion cutter." "Did we win?" Maya asked, her throat dry as sandpaper. "Define winning," Kess replied with what passed for humor among his species. The Scarlith fleet retreated. Admiral Krex is apparently facing trial for losing to what he keeps calling a singing meat puppet. And you've become something of a legend among the civilian refugees. Maya tried to process this information, but her attention was caught by a soft sound coming from the corner of the medical bay. 3 small forms were curled up together on a makeshift bed, breathing in the slow rhythm of peaceful sleep. "They haven't left your side," Kess explained, following her gaze. "Captain Threx tried to relocate them to proper quarters, but they kept sneaking back. Finally, he gave up and had maintenance install a proper sleeping area." As if sensing her attention, Pip's ears twitched and the smallest cub opened her eyes. Upon seeing Maya awake, she let out a squeak of joy that immediately roused her siblings. "Maya." Toke bounced off the bed with typical youngster enthusiasm. "You're awake. We thought you were going to sleep forever." "Did you really fight a monster?" Ren asked, approaching more cautiously but with obvious excitement. "I fought someone who was doing bad things," Maya corrected gently. "Sometimes that's what grown-ups have to do." "But you sang to us first," Pip said matter-of-factly. "Mama always said songs make everything better." Dr. Kess cleared his throat diplomatically. "I'll leave you to your recovery session. Try not to aggravate your injuries with too much excitement." After he left, the 3 cubs climbed carefully onto Maya's bed, mindful of her bandaged back. They settled around her like furry guardian angels, their presence both comforting and heartbreaking. "Have you been eating properly?" Maya asked, noting that they looked thinner than before. "The food dispensers taste like metal," Toke complained. "Nothing tastes like Mama's cooking." Maya felt her heart clench. These youngsters had lost everything, yet here they were, worrying about her instead of themselves. It was both inspiring and devastating. "What's going to happen to us now?" Ren asked quietly. "Captain Threx says we'll be relocated to a colony world, but we don't know anyone there. Will you come with us?" Pip added hopefully. Maya wished she could promise them that, but military assignments didn't work that way. Her duty was to the Terran Alliance fleet, not to individual refugees, no matter how much she cared about them. "I don't know, little ones," she said honestly. "But I promise you'll be safe. The colony worlds are good places with families who will love you." "But they won't know our songs," Toke said sadly. "Mama taught us special songs that only our family knew." "Then you'll have to teach them," Maya replied. "That's how traditions survive. Someone has to keep them alive and pass them on." A soft chime from her communicator interrupted the conversation. Captain Threx's voice filled the room. "Commander Torres, when you're feeling well enough, could you join me on the bridge? We have a situation." Maya looked at the cubs apologetically. "Duty calls, I'm afraid." "Can we come too?" Pip asked. "We've never seen the bridge." Maya considered this. Ship regulations were clear about civilians on the bridge, but these weren't ordinary circumstances. "I suppose a brief visit wouldn't hurt. But you have to promise to stay close and be very quiet." The journey to the bridge was slow, with Maya still recovering from her injuries and the cubs stopping every few steps to stare at something they'd never seen before. Other crew members they passed offered respectful nods to Maya and gentle smiles to the youngsters. Captain Threx was waiting by the main view screen, his 4 eyes focused on what appeared to be a diplomatic transmission queue. He turned as Maya approached, his mandibles clicking in a pattern she'd learned to recognize as mild frustration. "Commander, we have a problem," he began, then noticed the 3 small shadows following her. "I see you've brought the cubs." "They were curious about the bridge," Maya explained. "I thought a quick look wouldn't hurt." Threx's expression softened slightly. "Of course. Welcome to the bridge, youngsters. Please stay behind the safety barriers." The cubs pressed close to Maya as they took in the bustling activity of the command center. Their eyes were wide with wonder at the holographic displays and the various alien crew members working at their stations. "Now, about our situation," Threx continued. "We've received over 300 adoption requests for the cubs. Apparently, news of your performance has spread throughout the Alliance. Every family with youngsters wants to adopt the cubs that the singing warrior protected." Maya felt a mixture of relief and concern. "That's wonderful, but how do we choose? And more importantly, how do we make sure they stay together?" "That's the complication," Threx admitted. "Most families can only handle 1 cub at a time. The adoption agencies are recommending separation to ensure proper placement." "No." The word came out harder than Maya intended. "They've already lost their mother. They're not losing each other too." "Maya's right," a small voice piped up. Pip had been listening intently despite Maya's instructions to stay quiet. "We don't want to be separated. We're family." "I understand the sentiment," Threx said gently, "but sometimes practical considerations must take precedence over emotional ones. The agencies know what's best for youngster development." Maya felt a familiar surge of stubborn determination. "Captain, with respect, the agencies don't know these cubs. They don't know what they've been through or how strong their bond is." "Then what do you suggest?" Threx asked. "We can't keep them aboard indefinitely." Before Maya could answer, Communications Officer Dex interrupted. "Sir, we have an incoming priority transmission from Earth Command." The main view screen activated, revealing the stern features of Admiral Patricia Wells, Maya's direct superior in the Terran Alliance fleet. Her silver hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her expression was unreadable. "Commander Torres," Admiral Wells began without preamble, "your actions at the Battle of Kepler Station have created quite a stir." Admiral Crex's public statements about being defeated by a lullaby-singing meat creature have become something of a sensation across Alliance space. Maya winced. She'd hoped her unconventional tactics would remain classified. "Admiral, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you used psychological warfare in the form of nursery songs. That you single-handedly prevented a massacre through creative use of personal music players." Wells's expression cracked slightly, revealing what might have been amusement. "Commander, the Psychological Warfare Division wants to study your methods. The Diplomatic Corps wants to award you a medal. And about half the Alliance fleet wants to know where they can get their own combat playlists." "I was just doing my job, Maya replied, acutely aware of 3 small sets of ears listening to every word. "Your job doesn't typically include informal adoption of alien refugees," Wells continued, and Maya's heart sank. "However, given the exceptional circumstances and the media attention this case has received, Earth Command is prepared to authorize an unusual solution." Maya held her breath. "The Terran Alliance is establishing a new cultural preservation program for war orphans. The goal is to maintain family units while providing proper care and education. We need someone to head this program, someone with demonstrated commitment to interspecies child welfare." Maya felt the cubs pressing closer to her legs, sensing the importance of this moment even if they didn't understand all the words. "Commander Torres," Admiral Wells continued, "how would you feel about a transfer to permanent civilian liaison status? The position comes with adoption privileges and a rather nice house on Sanctuary Prime." Maya's knees nearly gave out. "Admiral, are you saying?" I'm saying that if 3 certain cubs happen to need a permanent guardian, and if that guardian happens to be a war hero with a talent for lullabies, Earth Command would consider that an acceptable arrangement. Pip let out a small squeak of excitement, quickly hushed by her brothers. Maya looked down at them, seeing hope blooming in their large eyes. There would be conditions, Wells added. Regular reports on the cultural preservation program. Occasional consultation on interspecies diplomatic issues. And I expect to see those cubs properly educated in both their native traditions and alliance standards. I accept, Maya said immediately, then caught herself. That is, pending the cubs' agreement, of course. 3 voices spoke in unison, yes. Admiral Wells's stern expression finally cracked into a genuine smile. Excellent. Your transfer orders will be processed within the week. Congratulations, Commander, or should I say Director Torres. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Maya looked down at the 3 cubs who were vibrating with barely contained excitement. Does this mean you're our new mama? Pip asked, her voice hopeful but uncertain. Maya knelt down, ignoring the protest from her healing back, and pulled all 3 cubs into a gentle hug. If you'll have me, little ones, I can't replace your mama, but I can love you just as much. Will you teach us more songs? Toke asked. All the songs I know, Maya promised. And you can teach me the ones your mama sang to you. Will we have our own rooms? Ren wanted to know, ever practical. You'll have whatever you need to be happy and safe, Maya assured him. Captain Threx cleared his throat diplomatically. Commander, while I hate to interrupt this touching moment, we do need to discuss the logistics of your transfer. Over the next several hours, Maya worked with the ship's administration to arrange her departure from active military service. The cubs stayed close, sometimes helping with paperwork by holding styluses or organizing data pads, sometimes just curling up nearby and napping. As evening approached ship's time, Maya found herself back in her quarters, packing her few personal belongings. The cubs were supposedly helping, but mostly they were exploring her things with the curiosity typical of youngsters everywhere. Maya, Ren said thoughtfully, holding up her combat knife, why did you really fight the monster? Maya paused in her packing. It was a more complex question than it seemed on the surface. Because sometimes when bad things are happening to good people, someone has to stand up and say no more, she replied carefully. Your mama did that when she fought to protect you. I did it when I fought to protect all of you. But you could have died, Toke pointed out with the blunt honesty of the young. Yes, Maya agreed, but some things are worth the risk. You 3 are worth the risk. Pip looked up from where she'd been examining Maya's music player. Will you sing to us tonight? We're scared about tomorrow. Of course, Maya said, settling onto her bunk. What would you like to hear? The Star Song, all 3 cubs said together. Maya smiled and began to sing, her voice soft and warm in the quiet of her quarters. As the familiar words filled the air, she realized that this was just the beginning. Tomorrow they'd start a new life together, facing whatever challenges came their way. But tonight, 3 orphaned cubs fell asleep to the sound of someone who loved them singing about stars and diamonds in the sky. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, other youngsters in other ships listened to their own guardians singing their own lullabies, keeping the darkness at bay one song at a time. Because that's what families do. They sing each other through the dark times and celebrate together when the stars come out. Maya's voice faded to a whisper as the cubs' breathing deepened into sleep. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new challenges, and probably new songs to learn. But tonight they were safe, they were loved, and they were home. And in the end, that was all that really mattered.